Welcome to the All Things Nintendo podcast. I'm Brian Shea, and this is a weekly podcast to discuss all the biggest news and games from the world of Nintendo. It has been a pretty slow news week for Nintendo, but we still have a jam-packed episode. We have plenty to talk about. First, we're going to be reviewing a bunch of brand new games on Switch 2, and then in the main segment, we will shift to looking ahead to one of the most anticipated games on Nintendo's calendar, Pokémon Pokopia. Joining me for this first part of the show is Game Informer's Wesley LeBlanc. Wes, how's it going?
Hello, I'm doing okay. I'm a little tired today, and I just realized in this moment while looking at myself on the camera, because, you know, that's what you do. I did not have coffee this morning, and I can tell. And I have not made this mistake in a very long time. It's 1:07 here, and I'm feeling it.
Do we need to take a break so you can go brew a cup of coffee? Well, I'm not above that. I mean, I just did it before we started recording, so it's not unheard of. I'm sympathetic to that ailment.
This gives me an excuse to get out of the house after and go grab a coffee. I haven't seen the sun today.
All right. Well, I will be sipping on my nice iced coffee that I have right here in the palm of my hand, trying my best not to rub it in. You have
LaCroix.
A LaCroix, okay.
A Pamplemousse LaCroix.
Yeah. Oh, Pamplemousse. Oh, Wes LeBlanc, a famous Frenchman, drinking Pamplemousse, which is French for grapefruit.
Yes.
But Wes, before we jump into the reviews and impressions that we're going to be given, did you watch the Super Bowl?
I watched like 20 minutes of it.
Okay.
Specifically the halftime show.
I knew Bad Bunny was the halftime show. I did not know that Lady Gaga was going to show up and sing for us. And by show up, I mean in a Pokemon 30th anniversary commercial. And by sing, I mean the literal Pokemon move, because she sang the Jigglypuff song. What world are we living in here?
The best world. We're not living in the best world.
There's a lot of I hope it's not the best world.
There's a lot of things to show that that's not the case. But we're living in a timeline that has blessed us with Lady Gaga being best friends with a Jigglypuff, and that's what we need right now.
It is incredible to hear one of the biggest pop stars on the planet singing a song from our childhood, and which felt at the time like a secret club liking Pokemon. Yeah. And now fast forward 30 years, and here we are with the status that Pokemon is in. But very cool commercial. A bunch of celebrities, including Trevor Noah and other pop stars and big names that are way younger than I am, so I don't know most of them, to be honest. But telling us what their favorite Pokemon was, that was a fun surprise. I kind of leaned forward in my couch that I was sitting at the party I was at for the Super Bowl when that came on the screen. But Wes, we are 2 weeks away from the Pokemon 30th anniversary, and as it always is, we're going to more than likely get a Pokemon Presents on February 27th. Do you have any predictions for what this 30th anniversary Pokemon Presents stream might give us?
I do, and I feel very confident for various reasons.
Okay.
I think Gen 10 for sure.
Almost certainly, right? That's got to be here.
I think it'll probably be very similar to the Scarlet Violet reveal, which was a stylized trailer that revealed the starters, basically.
Mm-hmm.
I think it'll be something like that. I don't think we're going to see gameplay. That's not typically how they do things. We might see like a cinematic flash, like a look at the world real quick, like a tease, but I don't think it's going to be an in-depth thing. That will be the closer of the show, I imagine.
Yeah, I think that's what they did with Scarlet and Violet. I remember I was, where was I? I was somewhere else. I was traveling, and I remember watching it in my hotel room when it happened. And I think it was like, kind of like like you said, like a cinematic that is not in the game. It was like kind of like going into like a museum, if I'm not mistaken.
There was like a security guard that found something, and then we saw the map of Paldea, if I remember correctly.
It kind of like did like a quick pan of like in-game footage, but like, no real actual detail. So I could see that being kind of like maybe highlighting the gimmick or hinting at the gimmick a little bit in whatever Gen 10 ends up being called. But all right, what else you got for us?
I think we'll see something with old Pokemon games. There's rumors out there, and there's always rumors before Pokemon Direct, so take it with a grain of salt that like some older games are coming to Switch, but not via Switch Online. And I actually do believe that, because especially the Pokemon games coming to Switch, but not Switch Online. That part is so key because that is exactly what Nintendo would do. That's such a very Nintendo decision to build up this amazing library of NSO games with Mario, with all kind of stuff, and then the ones that they know they can charge and we will pay for, they do. And I think that's what's going to happen. It'll be similar to the Kanto and Johto games on 3DS towards the end of
that
that
was the
life
20th
cycle.
anniversary. Was
Yeah.
they put out
So
red,
10
blue,
years
and
ago.
yellow, and then gold and
Jeez.
silver. Yeah,
Yeah.
that was 10 years ago. They put that out because that was shortly after I joined the Game Informer team, and I've been at GI for 11 years and 2 months now.
Yeah,
So
I'm hoping we get something Hoenn. It's weird with now that Nintendo has the Switch, it almost like puts into perspective like I kind of wish their handheld lineage didn't happen. I loved the 3DS and DS and all that stuff, but like now that we have the Switch, it's so clear that this is going to be it going forward, like a single unified console. So we have various Pokemon remakes and releases that are just stuck on 3DS and before. And I hope that they are trying to find a way to get them onto Switch 2. I think Switch 2 can play 3DS games power wise. I don't know what needs to happen to do that. Obviously, you've got the 2-screen issue, which people have long theorized that they sell a second screen component. I don't know how that would work tech wise, but I could see Nintendo doing that.
Hey, there's a USB-C drive at the top that they
can
click on.
So I'm hoping we see some old Pokemon games come to Switch so that I can buy them and play 45 minutes of them after spending $30 on each one.
I could see the like kind of the older remakes being, or not older remakes, older releases. Like if they put out like red, blue, yellow, I could see those being like $10, $15 maybe. But like if they were to take like Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire, rework them so that there's not a second screen requirement, like put the menus on screen rather than like down on the second screen, I could see those being like $50, $60 releases.
Yeah,
not saying that's what I want them to be. Like I think they should probably cap out these re-releases at like $30 or $40, but that's not how Nintendo's playing these days. Like we saw Donkey Kong Country Returns was actually a worse version of that game than the 3DS release, and they charged us full price for that. So
yeah,
I mean, it's a better version now because they put out that free update 1 full year after the original came out.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think Nintendo is kind of feeling themselves a little bit right now.
Yes, the pricing. Absolutely. Yeah. We're going to see a bunch of stuff that we probably won't care too much about. Probably a Pokemon Unite update will be the biggest thing. Pokemon Cafe Remix, all that stuff.
Masters EX, all that stuff. Yeah.
I'd love to see something on the animation front. I don't remember what, because they kind of blitzed announced animated stuff last year. I know they have Concierge and they're working on something else. And I can't remember off the top of my head, but I imagine more of that. I would love to see more Concierge. I love that show a lot. And now that I have a daughter, I want more so that I can show her that because it seems perfect for that. And then I'm trying to think if there's any like maybe ZA DLC, but I don't know. I feel like what they put out, the Mega Dimensions, was it. Like I don't think that. Oh, you know what I could see? Ooh, I would love this too. An Arceus Switch 2 edition or an Arceus update. Yeah. I think that would be really smart because I think ZA did a lot. It did pretty well. And there's a lot of people, myself included, who played ZA but not Arceus just because I was drawn to the city setting. But now that I know I like this Legends formula, I'm a lot more interested to go back to Arceus, and I'd love to see that get some graphical bumps and frame rate help.
Temper your expectations a little bit in terms of, I liked ZA, I'll probably like Arceus. And the reason I say that is it is completely different. Like, you know, it takes place in the past. The areas are much more open, and as a result, a little bit more barren. And also the combat is not the same. Like ZA was a complete reinvention of the combat. Arceus, I think Arceus is the official pronunciation there. Arceus is still the turn-based, but it is kind of like that seamless transition from like wild exploration into turn-based combat, which is cool. But there are the boss battles where like you're having to fight them as your trainer, which is cool.
Yeah. I mean, I love the turn-based stuff. So like that was never the turn off. It was really just like, it was kind of open. I wasn't a little frustrated with Pokemon in general in the Switch era due to visuals
Hmm.
and performance, and so like it was really easy for me to skip on that. And I think within a month or two, Forbidden West came out and Elden Ring, so
Yep.
Arceus got the bump.
I will
But yeah, I
say
don't.
that even though I did temper your expectations there, I like Arceus a lot more than ZA.
Yes, yeah, I have I've heard that a lot. I've heard a good bit of people say that, which so I'm excited to hopefully go back to, and I'd love a Switch 2 version to do that. I don't know. Is there anything I didn't mention that you think we might see? I feel like I've
No, I mean you were pretty comprehensive. Like I could see us maybe
yeah.
like getting another spin-off entry. Like I'm sure we're going to learn more about Champions, which we
Oh yeah,
haven't really
Champions.
gotten
Yeah,
too much, but like I could see it being like a spin-off of some sort being announced. Like I don't know if it's like another Pokemon Snap, I don't know if it's another like Pokemon Puzzle League,
Hmm.
Pokemon Pinball. I don't know, some like revitalizing one of these beloved like spin-offs.
For
We're
Switch
not
or for mobile?
for I mean, it could be both, really, but I was thinking Switch, like kind of like in the lines of like what we got with new Pokemon Snap,
Yeah,
where it was like, hey, here's this franchise you haven't gotten anything new from in 25 years. We're going to do a new version of that. Like, I think there's a lot of stuff they could mine from that, even if it's like a
yeah.
new Pokemon Rangers game, like
Ooh, that
some
would be cool.
sort of like spin-off, because I think that you're right. They're going to probably do a lot of like classic like nods, because they're like, this is the year, right? This is the 30th anniversary. That is a big milestone for any franchise to reach, let alone the most, profitable franchise in entertainment media history.
Yeah,
And I can't see them like not going big with at least like, in addition to Gen 10, other like substantial announcements that aren't like, hey, we're bringing red, blue, yellow, gold, silver, platinum, and all those like to Switch 2.
yeah.
I think that there's got to be at least one other like major game announcement for Switch.
I mean, we're technically due for a remake.
Yeah, we
Um,
are.
we haven't really been able to suss out what the new timeline is for Pokemon because they're pretty much near annual in some capacity with Legends now and the remakes and stuff. So like we theoretically would be due for a remake this year, I think, but with it being the 30th anniversary, I think Gen 10 you really want to try to get that out because it's just thematically the move.
Because didn't we get, was Brilliant Diamond Shining Pearl the same year as Scarlet and Violet? Because I feel like,
No, it was I think it was 2021. It
yeah,
was I think it was my first year
yeah,
at
I think
Game
Brilliant
Informer.
Diamond Shining Pearl came out, and then I think it was Legends Arceus came out like around, somewhat
Yeah.
around that time. Because
So
Arceus,
2021 was Diamond and Pearl. Arceus was like January or February, fall in 2022, right?
yeah, and it was right after that, because
Yeah.
like Brilliant Diamond Shining Pearl, then into Legends Arceus, because originally I think Legends Arceus was supposed to come out that fall with Brilliant Diamond Shining Pearl. Then they delayed it into early 2022, and that
Yeah.
was why we got both Legends Arceus and Scarlet and Violet in 2022.
Yeah. And then wait, was Scarlet Violet that year?
I'm pretty sure, yeah, because we didn't. It wasn't the same year as Mario Wonder, because that was the big Switch game for that fall, was
Yeah, you're
2023.
right. Yeah. It was 2022.
So yeah,
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, so we're I
it's
mean,
got
we're
to be
due for
black
a
and white,
remake and
right?
we're also due for a new gen. So at
Yeah.
this point with the 30th, I think you just go Gen 10 and um yeah, you call it.
How would
I'm
you
very much
feel
looking
if
forward.
How would you feel if they did the classic games like either immediately or in the next like several months? We got black and white remake this fall, and then Gen 10 maybe next summer.
I'd
Like, how would you
probably
feel about that?
I want Gen 10 pretty badly because I'm just excited to see it, but I would prefer that just because that means Gen 10's getting more time. And as we know, Pokemon never gets enough time, it seems. Like there's always room to improve. And yeah, I would like that. Also, I think it'd be cool to get a Pokemon game in the summer.
Yeah.
Especially with some of the rumors and speculation and stuff surrounding Gen 10's like themes and whatnot. I think it'd be cool.
But I could see them wanting to get it out this year just in celebration of
Yes.
of the 30th. Or what if they announce it for Pokemon Day 2027 release? Like just a big celebration of
That'd be really cool to
like
cap off the 30th year.
yeah, I don't know. Just kicking ideas around. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know how credible any of the rumors are that are circulating right now. But, we're about 2 weeks away. Or if people are listening to this on the day it releases, exactly 2 weeks away
Yeah.
from this Pokemon 30th anniversary live stream that is almost certainly going to take place on February 27th. So just looking forward to learning more and like seeing what on earth Pokemon has cooking up for us. So
Yeah.
very excited. I hope everybody will join us in a couple weeks here as we break down everything out of that Pokemon Presents. We're going to jump over to talking about some games that are out on Switch right now or coming out in the very near future. But first, a reminder that this show is brought to you by the fine folks who support me on Patreon. Without them, this show literally would not exist. You can get access to the community Discord for as little as $3 a month, where we are talking Nintendo, the latest gaming news, and showing off whatever we've added to our collection recently all day long. There are also $5 and $10 tiers to get you early and ad-free episodes, plus shout-outs at the end of every show. You can join the team that makes this show happen by going to patreon.com and searching for Brian Shea or All Things Nintendo. It's only because of the fine folks who support this podcast on Patreon that I'm able to keep it going as an independent entity week after week. All right, Wes, let's jump in. We've got a few games that we're going to talk about here in terms of like reviews or impressions. And I think that the best place to kick it off here, because this is Nintendo's mascot after all, we have a new Mario Tennis game out today.
Yeah.
And I reviewed it for Game Informer, and the Mario Tennis franchise is a weird one because I would say most of the entries are good. There have been a few stinkers, or I would say a couple stinkers. The most recent one of those is Mario Tennis Ultra Smash on the Wii U, which just had like no content. It had a crappy gimmick, and it was just not a great Mario Tennis game. Mario Tennis Aces came out in 2018 on Switch 1. Righted most of the wrongs of Ultra Smash, added a bunch of content, and now we have Mario Tennis Fever, which is, I would say, carrying the momentum forward of Mario Tennis Aces. Is still quite a good entry in this franchise. If you are a fan of Mario Tennis and you want to just pick up a game with a bunch of Nintendo characters hitting a ball back and forth, the gameplay is sound. The gimmick is really good. The fever shots, it's called, where basically you charge up a meter and then you activate it, and based on the racket that you have equipped, you'll perform a special shot. And these range from, basically your character jumps up in the air and then slams it down, and if the ball hits the ground on that your opponent's side, it activates the effect. So there's like a flame racket where the ball hits and it like erupts in fire. And if like your opponent steps on the fire, they catch on fire and start running around, kind of like Mario in Mario 64. So it makes it kind of hard to like control your character for a little bit, and also drains their HP. And if you lose enough HP in most modes, it means that character has to sit out. And if you're playing singles, that means they lose the point automatically. So there's all kinds of fever shots that you can do there's like over 30 rackets. And there's an ice racket where like it will like just create like a sheet of ice on the court, so like you don't really have much turning power or pivoting power because you're slipping all over the place like you would in like an ice level. There's one that like there are several that you hit it on there, and if it hits the ground, it spawns like enemies, like Mario enemies. Like there's Pokies, like the cacti guys from like Mario 3 that'll spawn. There's some that like will spawn like the fire bars from like Bowser's castles. There's all kinds of ones. There's even ones that like benefit you more than they like hurt your opponent. And like there's one that will create like a shadow clone of you temporarily, so you have like kind of the numbers advantage. So there's all kinds of really interesting fever shots that you can pull off. And what I like the most, because this is the same for Pokemon, I cannot stand when the gimmick is just a press to win button. Yeah. That is one of my least favorite things. That's why I hated about the original version of Mega Evolutions. It's what I hated about like Z moves and Gigantamaxing and all that stuff. Is so often it was just like, all right, as soon as I activate this gimmick, I win. And that's all there is to it. And there's no strategy whatsoever. For Mario Tennis Fever's fever shots, there's a very easy way to counter it, and all you have to do is not let the ball hit your side of the court. So like if I do a fever smash at you, Wes, all you have to do is get to it before it hits the ground. And if you hit it back and it lands on my side, then the fever effect hits my side. So you've
Okay.
effectively reversed it. So like if I hit a flame shot at you, you return it, it lands on my side, it suddenly there's fire everywhere on my side. So it's like a total backfire, and it's really like a great risk reward calculus that you have to run, because on one hand it's like, okay, well I can, if I'm playing singles, I can easily avoid hitting at my opponent and just smash it on like the other side of the court, but then they're not over there, so the effect isn't really like impacting them
Yeah, yeah.
aside from like, unless the ball ends up over there on a subsequent point. However, if you hit it near them, it will explode in fire right next to them. But they have a really good chance of getting to it before it hits, and then they'll hit it back to your side. And then if you don't hit it back before it hits the ground on your side, then you're in trouble.
Oh, so
So
you can hit it back and back and back and back.
yeah, it's just wherever
That's
it
fun.
lands for the first time. So like I got into some really intense rallies, especially there's a couple of tournament, like I played through all the tournaments when I was reviewing it, and the final tournament is actually the once you get to like the end of the final tournament, it is pretty intense. Like I had some pretty like long back and forth rallies with the final opponent in that tournament. So yeah, that like I love this gimmick. I think it's one of the better gimmicks that they've had in the franchise. And like I said, like the normal gameplay is also really sound. It's more based on strategy than like you're very rarely hitting it into the net. You're very rarely hitting it out, because like it's meant to be a more casual tennis experience. So instead, I can aim as far left as I want, and it's almost certainly not going to go out and like count for my opponents. So it's more about hitting the ball in a way that is going to get your opponent out of position, and then when they hit it
Swinging
back to
back
you,
at them.
then
Yeah.
you hit it back the other way. So like, you're just basically trying to like drag them as far out on one side or as far deep. And then, if they're over on one side, then hopefully they're reaching for it and they're hitting like a soft like lob your way, and then you can smash it down the other way. And that's how I won so many of the points. And then there's also, hitting them like really deep rallies. So they're like having to stand back and then hitting them with a drop shot, which is always super satisfying to catch an opponent kind of on their heels, and then you hit a drop shot right really close on their side of the net, and there's just no way for them to get to it. There's all kinds of modes that I really enjoyed with Mario Tennis Fever. The adventure mode, I think, is the main attraction for a lot of people. And I think it's going to be one of those that like is fine, but it's not going to be like looked back upon as like kind of like Mario Golf had in its early days, like the Game Boy version, the Game Boy Color version, where it's like there was a whole RPG mode. This was much more of a linear adventure mode, and it starts off excruciatingly slow. Like I hated the beginning of this adventure mode, because basically the story, it gives you a lore reason for why Mario and Luigi and all of them are playing tennis with all these people. And basically like Mario and Luigi, Wario and Waluigi get turned into the baby versions of themselves through some like mystical power while they're adventuring. And they were using like they like picked up like a frying pan that was like in the dungeon that they were in, and were using that to like repel some of the enemies that were coming at them. So they're like swinging like a tennis racket.
Yeah.
And that kind of puts them down the path of like, okay, well, this is how we combat this enemy. We just didn't do it good enough. Like we got caught. So now like as babies, you go back to this tennis school and you learn like the basics of tennis. And the tennis school is a fun premise, but it really goes on for way too long. Like I think half of my time in the story mode was just doing these tennis lessons. And it was like, is this adventure mode just going to be a glorified tutorial? And it really is, for like, I would say at least the first third, if not the first half. They're giving you fun mini games, but like it's just so much dialogue explaining how tennis works, and it's like, well, just give me the mini games. I guess you could skip the dialogue, but it is still like it felt like they were having me go back and forth for no reason. Like it was like, okay, you passed this, now run to the other side of the academy, talk to so-and-so, and they'll get you with the next thing. And then they're like, great job, you passed that. Now go all the way back to the other side of the tennis academy and talk to Toad again, and he'll tell you how to do this. And it's like, it felt like padding in a lot of ways.
Yeah. The Switch 2 and the Switch generation For me, its biggest issue with its first party games and like first party partner releases like Pokemon is the tutorials. Like I get that Nintendo does cater to children more than other consoles, but their tutorials are just they're draining. Like they are the ZA tutorial, for example, god awful. And this sounds like another where it's just like I understand putting the tutorial in the game, but there should be an option for like, I am a 30-year-old man. I have played your tennis games for years. Like I know how to play tennis. Put me into the story part. I don't need to do school right now. Yeah, that's a shame to hear, but I'm not surprised.
Well,
I don't know what the deal is with that.
again, not to temper your expectations when you finally go to play Legends Arceus, but
Not another terrible tutorial.
the first 2 hours of that game, I was like, God, what are they doing here? Like, this is the slowest I've ever seen a Pokemon game start. And then once like they like release you into like the world, it's my favorite since Heart Gold and Soul Silver. So
Yeah.
you have to kind of, strap on a helmet, lower your head, and ram through a few drywalls. But like once you get through there, you are set loose on like one of the coolest adventures in Pokemon. So yeah, I agree with you 100%.
How cool is adventure mode once you are let loose from this tutorial that sucks?
It's pretty fun. Like, they set you on like kind of an overworld map where it's just like, nodes that you go to, and each one is a different biome. And there's like a few, it's like 2 or 3 like tasks that you have to do in there. So like you go into like a cave, and it's actually like a dungeon crawling, like very casual dungeon crawling, but you're going around and like finding like ways that you need to drop down to the next level. And then in between, like every once in a while, there's a battle against like a mini boss. And this is usually like, all right, well, there's a boss that's like doing stuff off in the distance. You have to hit him with something, and like bats are flying across the screen, and every once in a while one of them will fly at you to attack you, and using the tennis racket you hit them back, and you hit them at the boss, and that's how you defeat the boss. So it's stuff like that. And then at the end of every single level there is a major boss where it's just like, a giant version of a Mario enemy that you're fighting. And they'll have special attacks and multi-phases and everything, and that's super fun. And it's a fun twist on like the game of tennis, and using tennis mechanics in like a boss encounter is super fun, because you're not just like hitting the ball back and forth with these. Like it's actually like you are using your tennis racket to counter their attacks in a lot of cases. And there's other stuff that you have to just dodge. Like there's like a boss that'll shoot fire that like lands on the ground. You just have to run away from that. But then they'll have other things that they'll shoot at you, and then you can counter those. So that's fun. And, it's pretty short. Like I think it was 5 hours that it took me to get through the entire adventure mode.
Is the adventure mode how you unlock? Because there's 38 characters and 30 rackets, if I remember correctly. How do you unlock those through the adventure mode, or is the adventure mode skippable?
So some of them you do. Every character has a different unlock method. A lot of them are like play 30 tennis matches, play 40 tennis matches. Other ones are like win the mushroom tournament, win the fire flower tournament, or whatever they end up calling them. Flower cup. I don't know. It's like that, where you just have to complete whatever task, and you can see what those are. You can go into like the character screen and be like, okay, in order to unlock this, you need to play 50 tennis matches, and then and everything that you do counts as a tennis match. I'm pretty sure like even the boss encounters in adventure mode count as one match. So like no matter what mode you're playing in, it does keep accumulating those numbers. And I really love the tournament mode. That's super cool. Like there's 3 different ones of those. And then there's also the trial towers, which originally I had little interest in, but it ended up being, I think, my favorite, like non-traditional Mario Tennis Fever mode.
Oh, nice.
Like I think my favorite thing to do in this game is just play tennis. Yeah. But the trial towers are really fun. It's almost like procedurally generated. There's 10 levels in each tower. And you have 3 lives, and you basically, every time you start it up, it randomizes what the challenges are. And, there's 3 towers. One's easy, one's medium, one's hard. And you have to just complete those without losing 3 lives in order to reach the top. And I will say the final tower, like I breezed through the first 2. The final tower took me several attempts.
Nice.
It was really difficult, and like you can get some catastrophically bad draws on those, on that tower, especially. Where it's like there was one where it was like everything was stacked against me, and it was like there's no way I'm winning this. So that can be both cool but also frustrating. And then there's the wonder matches where I don't know if that's exactly what they're called, but like there's like a wonder flower, and you collect wonder seeds, and then once you get enough, you win. But like along the way, you can also activate wonder effects, and it's like, all right, well now piranha plants are running around the court everywhere, and
Hmm.
like if you hit them, they'll swallow the ball and spit it out somewhere else. Or all right, the pipes are going up and down and like blocking parts of the net and everything. So there are some really cool things in there, but I felt like it didn't quite live up to the premise, because it I don't know, it didn't seem like it was as impactful. And then there's other courts and everything. Like there's a pinball court where like if you hit like there's bumpers that are like sunk into the court on both sides, and if you hit the court on your opponent's side where the bumper is, it'll stand up, so it's actually an obstacle in the middle of it, and they'll bounce off of it if they go
Ah,
over
that's
there.
cool.
So there are
Nice.
some cool twists on it, but overall, I think this is a very good Mario Tennis entry. I ended up giving it a 7.5 out of 10 over on Game Informer. I don't think it is quite as I think it I don't think it's quite as like momentous as Aces was, where it was like a
Mhm.
complete recovery from Ultra Smash. This just felt like, okay, they took what worked in Aces, swapped out a few things, included fever shots, which I do enjoy, and then made an adventure mode that was, take it or leave it, and then some other modes that were fun but also have some caveats along the way. So yeah, 7.5 out of 10. You can go read the full review over on gameinformer.com. It's available now on Switch 2 if you want to check that out. So, Wes, I had you on this show because you reviewed a game that also came to Switch 2 this week, and that is
Yeah.
called Reanimal. I don't even know the first thing about this game. So, talk to me about what Reanimal is.
Yeah, so a studio called Tarsier Studios, they made Little Nightmares 1 and 2, and then curiously, they were no longer a part of the Little Nightmares series. Bandai Namco owns that, and they started remastering it, and they had supermassive games develop Little Nightmares 3, which I also reviewed last year. I gave it a 7.5. So after Little Nightmares 2, Tarsier started working on a game called Reanimal, which on its surface, like if you watch a trailer, if you're familiar with this game, it's so clear that this is the studio that made Little Nightmares. It plays very similarly. It's a horror themed exploration kind of puzzle platformer game. But I think it's quite different from Little Nightmares in ways that don't really reveal itself on the surface. Even when I spoke to the team at Gamescom last year, the big highlights or the marketing beats that they were telling me about was like a reworked camera, which isn't like a very flashy or pretty or sexy term, but like then I played the game and yeah, the camera they did a lot to like to reinvest and refresh the camera of this type of game. Little Nightmares is very you're on the left side of the screen, you go right sometimes, maybe this time you go left, and you kind of just are progressing through levels that way. Reanimal is a much more it kind of gets rid of that 2.5D exploration and it replaces it with a fully like 3D environment to explore. You are still moving forward, like that's your main goal, but like they do a lot to play with the camera, and sometimes they take over the camera to give you some more like cinematic shots and cinematic viewpoints. And there's spots where you're running away from a creature and you're doing it Crash Bandicoot style at the screen, which I really enjoyed. Yeah, so like it's very different underneath the skin of this game to the Little Nightmares. The biggest difference would be I've been describing it to friends and to you guys here at Game Informer. Like if Little Nightmares is Tim Burton esque, which I think is something people really cling to and see in Little Nightmares, myself
Mhm.
included. Um, Reanimal is like Ari Aster esque type horror game, which Ari Aster did Hereditary and Midsummer and some other films. Very messed up movies. Like
Yeah,
they're
disturbing stuff that will stick with you after you turn the movie off.
exactly yes. And I think the key difference between comparing Tim Burton and Ari Aster is they're both like horror geniuses, but Tim Burton to me and Little Nightmares has like some whimsy and some like fantasy feel to it that makes it something where you're like, I could play this with like a kid if they're cool with The Nightmare Before Christmas. If you have a kid, like, do not play Reanimal with them. This is a messed up game. This is a game about war and the effects it has on children and what children have to do when war affects their friends and how far they'll go to save their friends while adults screw up the world around them. A very timely and punctual story in various places around the world, obviously. And that part was really touching me. I actually really enjoyed trying to like engage with the narrative here because I wouldn't describe Reanimal as fun. But I don't think that every game needs to be fun. Obviously, this is a game about like it's torment and it's horror and it's hard and it's grudging and you're just trying to save these kids and their friends and they're going through some really messed up stuff. Like you are beating seagulls with a crowbar. Animals are dying in very brutal, grotesque ways.
Jeez.
Yeah, there's like lots of suicide in it. There's like a whole section with a ton of suicide. There is a very large, elongated man with broken bones who creeps around and he takes the skin of bodies and irons them, and it's gross and you can hear like skin sizzling and bubbling under the iron when you walk by. Like it's just a messed up game. Like it'll give you nightmares for sure. Yeah. Yeah. I can't stress enough, don't play this with your kid just because you play Little Nightmares with them. These are not the same games. The thing I like most about the game and what I enjoyed tackling as I was playing it was its narrative and its themes and what it was trying to say, because it's not a very in your face story. Like it's very clear to me that there's a war going on, but like there's a lot of other stuff happening. And for me, it's just kind of like a meditation on what kids go through when their streets that they play hide and seek on are turned into trenches. And I really enjoyed viewing the game through this lens. I'm sure other people have different takes on it, but I think that's where the game shines best. And to that point, I think this is a game that is best played alone in the dark with headphones, which is kind of a bummer to say that, because this is finally, amongst this lineage of games, including Little Nightmares, there is couch co-op, the fourth game in this type of series, this genre. We finally have couch co-op. Weirdly, Little Nightmares never had it. Little Nightmares 3 had online co-op. This has both online and couch co-op. However, I don't think it's a good co-op game, and I don't think it's one you should play co-op anyway. I'll tackle that first point first. It's not a good co-op game. Like there's not many. They really dialed down the amount of puzzles you're doing. I would say if Little Nightmares, which was their previous games, were like more puzzles with some platforming, this is like kind of the inverse. This is more about running away and escaping and there's some puzzles. I think I saw another reviewer say there was only like 12 total puzzles in the game, and that sounds about right within my 5 hours of beating the game. And
so it's a relatively short game as well.
Yes, yeah, and you can go through and there's collectible masks and concept art you can find, but like a clean run through is about 5 to 6 hours.
That's actually very, very promising for my prospects to check this game out.
Yes, it makes it easier. I don't know if it was longer, it'd be a little heavy to just keep being stuck in this world in, but the co-op is I don't know. It's just like they didn't really utilize it much. I played some co-op and then I played solo, and I much preferred solo, and the AI does a fine job, like the AI companion. But I honestly forgot that like this AI companion was with me, because you utilize them so little. Like you occasionally have to open doors together, and there was one cool moment that was very Brothers, A Tale of Two Sons, where like you're chained together and you have to walk forward across like crumbling platform, and so you have to do it like in step with each other. That was really cool, and it made me wish that there was so much more of that in the game, because it's like the only moment where it really shines as a co-op game. So then the other point is like I don't even think you should play this game co-op, because it's super heavy and super somber, and like couch co-op for me is about laughing and talking and figuring things out together. You won't be needing to talk or communicate to figure things out. It's all very simple. And then it's just not the kind of game where you're like going to be cracking up or making jokes or talking over scenes. It'd be like if you watch Schindler's List with like some friends and you're doing like it's supposed to be a hangout. It's like Schindler's List is not a movie for that kind of hangout. This is not as Schindler's List is a very dark and tough movie to watch. This is not as dark, but that's a good comparison I'm trying to make. Is like it's just not a game where you want to be with a friend on a couch playing through, and then it's not a good shared experience either. But I think as a solo game, it really excels, and I think it does a lot to advance what Tarsier originally started all these years ago with Little Nightmares. They added a bunch of new verbs to the game, to the genre. There's like shooting, there's driving, there is like combat, a good healthy dose of combat that I actually quite enjoyed. There's boss fights. There's the Crash Bandicoot style escape scenes that I mentioned, and I really enjoyed trying to like advance this genre because it has kind of waned on me in years. I'm kind of a little bit over Little Nightmares. I feel like it's had a good run, and I don't necessarily need more. This kind of showed me that like, oh, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I could use more if a developer like Tarsier is willing to come back and refresh and add a new layer to the gameplay. I gave it an 8.25 out of 10. With all that said, yeah, it's a tough game at times to watch and to look at. If animal harm is like out of the question for you, like I can't stress this enough. Don't play this game. There's a through line of animals. Obviously, the game's called Reanimal, and like you're going to watch a lot of animals perish in very slow, destructive ways. Yeah, so that's tough. And then the war part of it is quite tough as well. You know, we live in a world right now where there's various wars going on, and seeing their take on it and seeing how rough it can be from the eyes of a child can be pretty dark as well. But it's the type of game where it's like if you can stomach it, I do think there's a lot there to chew on. It's just I wouldn't begrudge anybody who's like, I'm gonna pass on this. I'm not in the mood to beat seagulls to death with crowbars, like by pressing X on a controller, and that's okay. But you know, I reviewed this game and I stuck it through, and I ended up coming out feeling like I had a game I'm going to be thinking about for a minute.
Yeah, I would bet. I had a question about the mechanics that you were talking about. You were talking about how there's like platforming, shooting, driving, like Crash Bandicoot style run towards the camera escapes. Did all of those feel like comparable in terms of quality, or was there some where you're like, okay, they're obviously not a shooting developer or a driving developer?
Yeah, they're I guess it's not like driving like you have full control over a vehicle. You kind of do, but it's like a set piece moment. Especially with the shooting and driving specifically. So it's like it doesn't need to be fully fleshed out. It's in this moment you're driving a runaway ice cream truck and you just need to reach the end of this road. So it's like kind of going off the rails and you're just trying to keep it in the road type of thing. And then shooting is the same. There's like a couple moments where you have access to like big guns and you just slowly aim them and take out some stuff. They never felt it's not even like something I'd even try to compare necessarily, just because like they're for the set piece. It's not like a mechanic as central to the game. And then it's a 5-hour game, so like the game kind of just is set pieces. You know, it's find some stuff, solve a couple puzzles, and then each area is like, all right, here's the big 20-30 minute set piece I'm going to be dealing with. And sometimes you're driving and sometimes you're shooting. And yeah, I guess for me it was worth mentioning and something I enjoyed, because I feel like these games are just kind of like go to the right side of your screen or go to the left side of your screen and just push forward. And it was nice to have like something else to do, like get behind a wheel or shoot a gun or fight a boss. I quite enjoyed that. I could see them going pretty big with this style of game now. It feels opening it up into like a more 3D experience versus 2.5D feels like a very, very smart move. And I'm excited to see where they go from here.
Yeah, I'm excited to check this out, even though some of the stuff you described does not sound like a nice way to, at the end of a day, sit back, kick my feet up and relax. But, you know, in the name of checking out as many good games as possible, I would definitely fire this up at some point.
Yeah. I don't want to like oversell like how dark it is. I mean, it's like it's obviously there's a lot worse, but like in the sense of Ari Aster, I'll mention Hereditary for example. In the beginning of that movie, there's the driving scene with the sister and stuff, and if you've seen the movie, you know what I'm referring to. It's like a very like unnerving moment that gets under your skin. I and many people I've seen more graphic things than
Mm-hmm.
that, but it's like what it is so unnerving that it kind of gets under your skin. That's kind of like what this is. This isn't like blood and guts and gore. It's just kind of like, ah, that is really gross or that is disturbing. Um, so yeah, just I think be cautious going into this and don't play with your kids. I think our coworker Kyle asked was talking to me about his daughter playing because she loves Little Nightmares, and I don't remember how old she is, but I was like, Little Nightmares is not a good test for like if you can play Reanimal. Like it's a very mature game.
All right. Well, if that sounds up your alley, it is available on Switch 2 and every other major platform right now. And you can check out Wes's full review over on GameInformer.com.
Yeah, and we did a video review as well. So if you want to
Oh,
see some of
nice.
the gameplay, check that out on our Game Informer YouTube channel.
Great. All right, I have three more games to talk about, and we were not going to spend as much time on these three as we have the first two because they're either not out yet or they're not as major of a thing that we need to touch on. The first one I'm going to talk about though is Carmageddon Rogue Shift. This is a revitalization of a franchise that was a lot bigger back in like the 90s and early 2000s, where it's a vehicular combat series that takes place in the post-apocalypse where zombies are everywhere. And basically they took the kind of vehicular combat style of Twisted Metal and Burnout, combined them into one, put them in the post-apocalyptic setting, and then made it a roguelite. So it is this very weird like mishmash of all these franchises from the vehicular combat genre. So like, you know, you can crash into your opponents like you can in Burnout and send them flying off in like by ramming them into barriers and stuff like that. But at the same time, you can also equip your car with weapons and everything and blast enemies that way. And it's just a single player game, though. This is just a roguelite. It is not a multiplayer game. You just get in the car at the beginning of this run, choose which perks you want, and you know, choose which vehicle you want to drive. And each vehicle has its own stats. It has its own weapons that are equipped by default. So like, you know, one might have a machine gun, one might have a shotgun, one might have a rocket launcher, but there's always going to be a give and take. Like, oh, well, the one with the rocket launcher might have worse handling, or the one with the shotgun is a bigger vehicle, but it so like you have more durability and you can ram people more effectively, but it's not going to be the fastest accelerating car. So there's all this give and take you have to take into account when you're playing this. And, you know, as you go through it, you're basically playing the same few events over and over again. And it's usually you have to finish in the top 3 for the event in order to progress to the next event. And it's a menu based overworld map, similar to like Mario Tennis Fever's adventure mode, where you're just selecting which node you want to go. And sometimes the paths will diverge and you'll be able to choose like, all right, I want to go up here because that will eventually lead me to the weapons shop and I want to upgrade my weapon, or I want to get a new weapon. And then, or you could choose a different one because like, oh, well, maybe that route has an elite one, which means that the AI, you have to beat them all. You have to finish in first place in order to progress rather than just top 3. So it's a super fun twist on that because, you know, everything you do, you earn credits. You know, if there's side objectives for every single one as well, so that adds you additional credits. So like wreck 6 opponents over the course of this race, or drift for 300 yards or whatever. So stuff like that. And it's just like optional objectives that get you additional credits. And then those credits can be traded for in-run upgrades, including like weapons or like additional like health or like better melee damage. So the moment-to-moment gameplay is really fun. And then at the end of it, you know, based on how you did, you get a different type of currency. I forget what it's called, but beat coins, I believe they're called. And the way that that works is those are for permanent upgrades that you can trade in. So like, all right, well, now all vehicles are going to start with 20% more health, or this unlocks a new vehicle for you to choose in the vehicle select screen. And it does unlock relatively fast. I think like within like 10 hours, I had more than half of the permanent upgrades unlocked. So it does dole these out pretty quickly. And it's fun to unlock this stuff, and it does feel meaningful every time you do it. And you can also, even like, some of these upgrades are just like, all right, this new upgrade is going to appear in the shop and it will allow you to, improve your melee combat better or something like that if you purchase this in run. Or there's other ones that like will make it so all your health pickups are disabled, but instead when you perform like a special move, like either drifting or getting a close call from like oncoming traffic or wrecking an opponent, that will refill your health instead. And all of your opponents have HP, you have HP, and not only not qualifying for an event will end your run, but you can also die, and that will end your run as well. So like if your car gets destroyed, and it's easy to happen. That happened to me more often than not qualifying for an event. Like I would get like just lit up by the enemy AI once you get into like the second or third world. And that is something that will absolutely end your run pretty unceremoniously, because you'll just be driving and then all of a sudden it's like your health is like flashing, like, oh crap, like I've got to find a health pickup. There's also, the zombies are kind of wandering the racetracks as you go, and taking them out also like gives you extra points and can restore your boost and everything. But there are special zombie variants that will also attack you. So there's different ways that you have to manage that. That adds a little bit more chaos into it. There's boss battles at the end of every world, which are fun. Like there's one that's like 2 enemies at once you have to take down, and you have like a set amount of time to do it. I think that one's 5 minutes. Then there's other ones where it's like this giant bulldozer that you have to wreck in order to progress, and it has flamethrowers shooting out on the sides, and then bulldozer on the front that if you like get in front of it, it'll ram you. And then there's one that's just like this really souped up like kind of sports car, and in that one you just have to beat it in a race, which was really, really tough because it's also like basically indestructible. So I was thinking like, oh, I'll just wreck it and then that will mean that I win by default, and I was just unloading my weapons and like melee damage on it, and it didn't even get down to half, and I was like, okay, this is not the effective approach with this boss. Overall, I really enjoyed it. There are some things I don't quite like about it. I think that like some of the, even though it's a very arcade focused racing game, like the controls are a little bit slipperier than I want it to be. And then also like some of the upgrades just, I don't know, like it doesn't feel meaningful enough. And then like there's just not that much meat on the bones. Like, I'm fighting the same handful of bosses, competing in the same handful of events. And yes, like there's different variables being injected into it. And then but it just starts feeling kind of samey. And then there's also the enemy AI, which will go like, first of all, there's enforcers that are like cops that come out to try to like disrupt the race. They're basically useless. Like a lot of the times they will just drive into the wall and not do much of anything. They're basically like target practice for you at that point, which is fine. Like I don't want them to like be like super aware and super like effective, because you want the combat to be between you and your opponents. Those are basically a distraction, but the enemy AI can be ruthless in the sense that like it's almost like they have the awareness that the only thing that matters is that you lose. So like I had enemies that would just like completely sacrifice their position in the race just to take me out, and that was kind of frustrating. But
yeah, that like doesn't make sense for a race.
Yeah, but overall, like I really, really had a good time with it. I think it's a really novel concept in the racing space. Like I never would have thought like a racing roguelite would be like my jam, but I had a blast.
It's a cool idea. Yeah, I almost kind of wish it wasn't the like Destruction Derby style or like Twisted Metal, because I love racing games, but I'm more of like a core. I just want to see who gets first place, and I think a roguelike would be cool. I'm sure there's some out there, but it does look cool. This is like a comeback for Carmageddon. Like it hasn't been around since the early aughts or 90s.
I think there was like a mobile or like free to play version, or like kind of like a single A, if we want to use that
Yeah.
term, like release back in like 2015, I want to say, but like I think that was largely ignored, or it was 2010 or something like that.
Hmm.
Let's take a look here.
I
Carmageddon
just played
Switch.
Twisted Metal 2 the other night because I was bored with everything I had, and I was paging through Premium PlayStation Plus and saw that I could play that. And yeah, it's an old game, but I loved it a lot.
Yeah, so it looks like Carmageddon came out on PC in 1997. Carmageddon 2, Carpocalypse Now, 1998, 1 year later. Then there was Carmageddon Total Destruction Racing 2000. Bet you can guess what year that came out in. And then not another Carmageddon game until Carmageddon Reincarnation. Very good name, actually, right there.
That is, yeah.
2014. And then there was, that was PC. And then Carmageddon Max Damage came out in 2016 for
Not a good
PC,
name.
PS4, and Xbox One. And then this is the first one in 10 years. But I reviewed it on PS5. It is on Switch 2 as well, which is why we're talking about it. It looks like the biggest thing is that the frame rate is lower. I was reading some Switch 2 focused reviews on this, and it looks like the frame rate was like 22 frames per second pre-launch. It looks like they did stabilize it quite a bit and got it up to like an average of 30. It does seem like, based on the review that I looked at, that was Switch 2 specific, it goes kind of from like 28 to 32 frames per second, which, you know, I'd take over 22 frames per second.
Yeah, yeah.
So just go into it with that awareness that the frame rate is going to be a little bit choppier, a little bit lower. The textures, even on PS5, are not the clearest. They're a little bit muddy. So I don't know how much you're going to miss out on that on the Switch 2 version, but yeah,
Yeah, it seems this is like a double A game, right?
it definitely is. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's available now. It's all major platforms: PC, Xbox, PS, and Switch 2. So go check that out if that sounds
Nice.
up your alley. There's a game that I have played a lot of, Wes. It's called Overwatch. And
Yeah, I've heard of
I
it.
I talked about this, I want to say last week, the big overhaul that Overwatch is doing. It's now just called Overwatch again. It's no longer Overwatch 2. Still free to play, but they're adding a lot of new story content. They're reworking a lot of the heroes. They're adding 10 new heroes over the course of 2026. So with that in mind, I am somebody who put over 1,000 hours into Overwatch 1. I
Wow.
reviewed Overwatch 2 for us. I would give Overwatch 1 a 10. I gave Overwatch 2 an 8.75, which, by the way, I didn't say what I gave Carmageddon. I gave Carmageddon Rogue Shift a 7.75 out of 10. Read the full review at GameInformer.com. But Overwatch 2 was I still thought it had promise. It had good stuff going for it. I wasn't a big fan of the switch from 6v6 to 5v5.
Me either. Yeah.
But it was still fun. Like, the core gameplay is still just a blast to play moment to moment. But it was a market downgrade from the original Overwatch. And then shortly after I did that review, I fell off completely. I did not play Overwatch 2. I deleted it from all of my hard drives. I had it on my Switch. I had it on my Xbox. I had it on my PC. And I had it on my PlayStation. Deleted all of them because I was like, I'm not going back to this game anytime soon. Then that announcement happened last week or 2 weeks ago or whenever it was. And I was like, I'm going to check this out again. So I fired it up last night and I had a freaking blast.
Yay.
It is cooking with gas once again. The opening cinematic that I was greeted with was insane. Like, you see like all these amazing Warcraft, like cinematics or Diablo cinematics that Blizzard puts out. This is on par with that. That was really setting the stage for what this new narrative that they're telling is. And then there's lore drops that unlock over the course of your play. Some of them are cinematics, some of them are motion comics, some of them are just like dossiers. I'm having a great time. Like, I only played like 6 matches, but like, it felt so good to be back. And just wanted to shout that out, that like it does seem like Blizzard has learned the lessons of these past 7 years, which is crazy to say.
It's a shame that it took that long.
Because 2019 was when they announced Overwatch 2, and that was when they effectively halted all content production for Overwatch 1. And then Overwatch 2 came out, wasn't a hit, and it seems like they finally figured out how to make this game feel good again. And like the characters, I'm struggling as somebody who's been away in large part for 7 years, but like, you know, to a lesser degree, 5 years. I'm struggling in the regard of like so many of my favorite characters have received reworks in the time since
Yeah.
I left. So
There's
like,
perks now, right? That's a thing.
yeah, there's different things that you just have to take into account that you didn't have to consider back in, you know, when I was playing religiously in like 2016 to 2019. And so I'm still like kind of keeping it like a little bit loose in that regard, because like I'm just playing mystery heroes right now because I found that is the best way to like get up to speed on a wide range of
Yeah.
heroes. And I've gone on some runs. Like it's like, okay, this is like riding a bike a little bit, but at the same time, I'm still like pretty rusty. Like I used to be able to
Yeah.
like on my controller, like say the exact voice command or voice line that I wanted to, or like spray something on the wall. Now I'm just like, oh God, okay. So I think I hold down on the D-pad and then go over. It used to be
Mm,
muscle memory.
yeah.
But it does feel good to be back in this world. I think that they're making really smart moves. And if you were an Overwatch fan and you've fallen off, I would recommend jumping back in. It's intimidating because now there's like a million different heroes, several
And they
of
just
which,
dropped 5 new ones with this
and they just
update.
dropped
Yeah.
5 new ones. But yeah, this felt like a true like return to form when I
Yeah.
fired it up, and I'm super excited to play more of it. I just wanted to shout that out because that is something that I checked out last night after this big update hit, and I am very very excited for what the future of Overwatch could be going
Yeah, they
forward.
the community, and it seems like a lot of old players are returning because I think on Steam it surpassed its all-time peak, which had been something that it achieved years ago. But the fact that they're able to bring in, I think, returning fans like yourself, I'm going to check it out as well. And I like you played the first one religiously, and the changes with 2 completely shattered my Overwatch friend group. We were all just like, nah. Um, and I'm excited to get back to it. And it's cool to see the reception has been. It's cool. I'm happy for that team. I think we don't know the story of what happened with Overwatch 2, but like reading between the lines, I have to guess that it was a lot of corporate handling that turned Overwatch into Overwatch 2 and what it was. And it's nice that this core team is getting back to what made the game great and so beloved. And I think it's hard for people to understand like 2016, like we see hero shooters all the time. We all bemoan a new live service game. We all feel bad for live service games because, like in High Guard, for example, and
Mm-hmm.
bringing in other news outside of the Switch ecosystem, like that team put out a game 3 weeks ago, and most of them just got laid off yesterday, and it's terrible. But
Insane. This
yeah,
industry is just brutal and ruthless and
yes,
completely broken in a lot of ways.
yeah. But in 2016, Overwatch was like novel, like so
Mhm.
novel. The hero shooter was, we didn't really know. Of course, Blizzard's the one that creates a brand new genre basically, and nearly perfected it. And
I
yeah,
mean, we
like you
had Team
said, like
Fortress 2, but
that's
like
true. Team Fortress 2, but
that was
that was
that kind
so
of faded a
hardcore
little bit.
already.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like in Team Fortress 2 is still huge, but yeah, Overwatch is just bright and colorful and so much to love in it. And I'm really happy to see it's back. I don't know if I'll be getting like back into it because it seems that my old Overwatch friend group are just permanently burned, unfortunately. But I am excited to check it out and see some of these changes, and see if Diva and oh, God, I don't even remember my other mains, but I know Diva was one of my main mains. Still, see if they still feel good.
Well, I can confirm that May still feels good, and I went on an absolute. I was a terror as Sombra, which I was never a great Sombra player.
Yeah,
I had like a 15-player kill streak on my
she's the
first game
hacker.
back. Yeah, she has a. They
Yeah,
reworked
yeah.
her a little bit now, so like her invisibility is and like teleport are kind of fused. So
Okay.
it plays really well and it's less annoying. They fixed a lot of like the exploits that players would use. Like you can't just plop down as Bastion anymore and like just like be a turret
Turret.
forever. Like it's
Yeah.
timed now, but you can roll around during that. So like you're kind of like a tank in that moment. But yeah, I'm having a blast with it. The downsides are it is still 5v5 default, but there is a permanent 6v6 mode, and then there's also the battle pass, but there are loot boxes also. Like it's like a reward that you can earn, but there's also a battle pass that does not seem to be permanent. So like it is time sensitive, which I absolutely don't
Oh,
like.
really? That is a bummer. I feel like we kind of got away from that.
Yeah.
Um, hmm,
But maybe they'll change
unfortunate.
that. Maybe they'll adjust that based on feedback. But that's how it is right
Yeah.
now. But yeah, everything
Marvel
else.
Marvel Rivals' battle pass is not, or it is permanent. You can work on it forever, I think. So I imagine Overwatch will be changing soon. I think a
Hope
lot of
so.
this Overwatch comeback is a good bit of healthy competition from Marvel Rivals too. Marvel
Oh,
Rivals is
definitely.
also a great game. Very much ate Overwatch's lunch last year when it came out, or 2 years ago, whenever it was. I don't
It
know.
came out
Last year.
December 2023. So, or
Marvel Rivals
2024.
did.
2024, December 2024. So it's
Oh my
been
god,
about a year and a
that's
half, almost, or a year and a
crazy.
quarter.
That just made my stomach drop. Um, yeah, it just healthy competition is good, and I'm excited to see these two Team Hero juggernauts competing and see what they do. Maybe Valve will put out Team Fortress 3 finally.
Well, the Overwatch 2 update, which turned it away from Overwatch 2 into Overwatch, just Overwatch again, is out now. The game is free to play, so you can just fire it up and play whenever you want to check this out. And it's available on all platforms that Overwatch is available on. And finally, Wes, we're going to wrap up with a preview of a game that I'm in the process of reviewing, but I checked with the PR team and there's no embargo, so I'm going to talk freely about this game. I have been talking a lot on this podcast about my desire for a new Star Fox game.
Yeah.
And it seems like Nintendo has very little interest in that. Watch, as soon as I say that, they'll put out like
Yeah.
an announcement that Star Fox 7 or whatever we're
Now in
on is coming
development.
out now in development, and then we'll get
Yeah.
it 25 years from now or whatever, however long Metroid Prime 4 took. But there is a game that caught my eye. I got a press release for this game. It's called Squadron Phoenix. And it's a sequel to a game that came out a few years ago called First Squadron, which is very much a successor to Star Fox. And I had
Yay.
never heard about this game. The original one was all wireframe graphics, similar to like kind of the original Star Fox visual style. This one is more like 3D visuals, and it is super colorful. It looks kind of like you would want a Star Fox game in 2026 to look, and it plays just like that as well. Only, like, you take control of a character who his old crew just gets absolutely destroyed. Like all of them, like, and like the introductory mission is literally you're on a mission with your crew. Everybody gets taken out, and your ship gets disabled, and you're just kind of floating through space. And then the first squadron, or the First Squadron Phoenix team or whatever, picks you up and brings you in as like a recruit, and you're basically joining them on their missions. They're putting you through training and stuff like that. So a lot of it is taking place in like a VR simulator, but it is super fun, and like it controls just like a modern Star Fox game should. Instead of having to like spam the shoulder button to do a barrel roll, you can just tap it and it'll automatically roll, or you can pull the trigger to like just like kind of veer to the side like you can in Star Fox. But there is like an auto roll button that you can hit instead of doing that. There's also multiple like kind of special weapons. So like in Star Fox 64, you just have the bombs. This, you start off with a bomb, but you can also like select different ones using the D-pad. So I have a laser right now, which like melts enemy shields. There's different use cases for all of them, and then there's an ultimate ability, which is kind of like just like a screen clearer, but like that they all operate on meters, and I'm having a really great time with it. Like it looks like there's only 8 levels, so it's not like a huge like chunky game. The game is a lot more difficult than Star Fox 64 was. Like I've died a couple of times I'm on the 4th level. And what I like about it, though, is the upgrades that you do are permanent. It's not a roguelike, but after every mission that you run, whether you win the level, you beat the level and destroy the boss, or you get killed halfway through or die at the boss or whatever, you get spit out and it gives you experience points. And then after you hit like a certain threshold, you level up and you get like an ability point. Now, what that does is that allows you to upgrade your ship, your special weapons, different effects that you can have. So, like, I upgraded my shield, but then I also noticed that, like, you don't get health pickups in the world, or you don't get, like, like in Star Fox 64, like you have to pick up like the laser upgrade, and that upgrades you from like one single green laser to two, like a double green laser, and then you pick up another upgrade, and that upgrades you to two blue lasers that are more powerful. You don't do that anymore. Now, instead, those are upgrades that you get permanently. So like I just upgraded my single green laser to a double green laser, or whatever color it is in this game. And now I have kind of like a basic double laser, which feels so much better. Meanwhile, I also upgraded my health. So now like that I have a little bit more durability. So like it's harder to die. I also upgraded like the energy that you accumulate when you like defeat a certain type of enemy. They drop energy, which charges your special weapons, like your bombs or your lasers. And then I went over and I upgraded my laser. So the warm up, because like, basically you just keep it on sustained, and the longer it's on there, the more damage it does. So it kind of like ticks up, like it starts off like, all right, doing 1 damage per second. Then it's like, by the time you're holding it on somebody, it's like melting through any enemy's HP or shields. I like increase the speed at which it warms up. So like there's all kinds of different upgrades you can unlock. The biggest downside I can think of is actually the characters. They talk back and forth. They have great personalities, but it's kind of like the Banjo-Kazooie style of conversation where it's just like noises and like gibberish. And it's weird because some of them use words from other languages. So I was like, oh, is that guy speaking Portuguese? Because like I know a few words in Portuguese, and he said one, and I was like, next time he talks, I'm going to open up Google Translate and make sure this guy isn't just talking Portuguese, which would be weird because the development team is based in Spain, but I guess that's right next to Portugal.
Yeah.
And then like the other one was like, it picked up on like a couple of Italian words, and I was like, what is going on here? But like it was all gibberish. Like
so like not even actual Portuguese or Italian words. It just gibberish sounded
some of
like
them
it.
It's like gibberish, but then there are a few words thrown in, which is very strange.
That is weird,
at first I was like, I don't want to call this gibberish if it's an actual language. Then I held up Google Translate, and it was just like random words, and it was so maybe I'm just like, maybe Google Translate is failing me, but it appears to just be gibberish. And I wish that they were fully voice acted. I know this is a smaller game, a smaller team, but I think that does go a long way, especially since like when you're flying around, there's a bunch of enemies on screen. I don't want to look down and read. It's the same reason I prefer dubs over subs when it comes to anime, because like I catch myself reading too much and not paying attention to the action on the screen. Same thing for like Assassin's Creed Unity. Everybody's like, oh, well, if you don't like the fact that all these French people have British accents in Assassin's Creed Unity, just turn on the French audio and read the subtitles. And it's like, well, I'm trying to parkour across Notre Dame. I don't have the ability to stop and read what Arno is saying in this moment. That's how I feel about the fact that there's no like actual voice acting. It's just kind of the gibberish that I'm experiencing, which, that's a small price to pay for a game that so far, again, I've only played less than half of this game. So far, it feels like the Star Fox 64 successor I've been waiting for almost 30 years. So
nice. That's
for
great.
Squadron Phoenix. Awesome. It's coming out February 25th. So we do have a ways before this hits. I'm playing on Switch 2. It seems to be running quite well on that. It's also coming to Steam. I don't know if it's coming to other consoles, but February 25th is the date to circle on your calendar if that sounds up your alley, which, if you're listening to this podcast, chances are you enjoy Star Fox 64, because I think a lot of Nintendo fans hold that in a very special place in their heart. But all right, Wes, where can people find you online as we see you off and allow you to escape this episode of All Things Nintendo?
You can find me on Blue Sky at Wesley LeBlanc, and you can find my words on GameInformer.com, and sometimes hear my voice on GameInformer.com, Game Informer's YouTube channel. Yes, that's where you'll find me. It's been a busy week, so there's lots to read from all of us at Game Informer. So if you hadn't checked the site this week, I highly recommend doing so. We published so much stuff, and we are recording this before a PlayStation State of Play tonight. So keep an eye on Game Informer.
Lots of exciting stuff over at GameInformer.com. And of course, always go and support us. GameInformer.com/subscribe if you'd like access to our magazine, either digital or physical. But we are going to take our only break of this episode, and when we return, I will be once again joined by Charles Harte to get his hands-on preview of one of the most anticipated Nintendo games of 2026, Pokémon Pokopia. We will be right back after this short musical interlude. We are back once again, and I am now joined by a guy you heard last week on All Things Nintendo. He traveled to New York to play a scattershot of upcoming Nintendo games. You heard about all of them last week, except for one, and that is Pokémon Pokopia, a game that we are very, very excited about here on All Things Nintendo. And the guy that I was referencing before is Game Informer's Charles Harte. Charles, how are you doing?
I'm doing good. We talked about a lot of games last week, but we didn't catch them all.
We did not catch them all. And you may remember that last week I was talking about feeling a little weird because of how negative everything was. And we were kind of down on most of the games, or at least the pricing structure of them. And even the peripherals we weren't super stoked on. But there was one game that Charles could not talk about last week, and we are going to talk about it this week. And Charles, it sounds like this was maybe your favorite thing that you played at this event in New York.
Yeah, I would say it's definitely the only game I played that I would be like, even if I did not work in this field, this would be a game I would be picking up. I think.
Okay.
It's like a more essential game, a game that is more specific to my gaming sensibilities than I think a lot of these others were.
So as somebody who has not played this game, the vibes that I kind of get are it's semi-Animal Crossing. I mean, maybe not semi, because I'm going to go three ways here. 1/3 Animal Crossing, 1/3 Minecraft, and 1/3 like Dragon Quest Builders, if you ever played that game. Am I super far off here?
That's, I think, pretty accurate. I haven't played Dragon Quest Builders. I want to see who the developers are on that.
Well, Square Enix published it.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, so that was the first one was Square Enix developed. Dragon Quest Builders 2 was Omega Force.
Okay, so I am seeing that Omega Force on Wikipedia at least is listed as the developer of Pokemon Pokopia.
I just realized that as well. There we go. There's the connective tissue.
I heard someone compare those games, and once I was playing it, I was like, this is a lot. It feels a lot more robust of a game than I think I initially assumed it would be. And yeah, so Pokemon Pokopia is a crafting, I wouldn't call it survival game, but it is like a open world kind of, or not open world. It's a sandbox game where you are terraforming your environment, building it to how you want it to be, and it kind of has Animal Crossing like dynamics where you're meeting Pokemon and befriending them, and like making them houses and stuff, and you're checking in with them every day. But it is a lot more. I thought it was going to be a lot more Animal Crossing, a lot more like light building stuff, but more just like talking to people and going about your day. And in my gameplay, I found there's a lot more emphasis on crafting and like terraforming the environment in a way that like got me very excited for the game. That I was looking forward to it, and this kind of set me over the top where I was like, okay, this has exceeded my expectations. So in this game, you play as a Ditto who's lost its trainer, and you are transforming to be like that trainer, which is just a funny design concept. And you're dropped into this, like, it's kind of an odd, it's a future, but it's like a wasteland, and all the Pokemon had disappeared. You meet Professor Tangrowth, who is like, I haven't seen a Pokemon around here in a while. And you meet Pokemon, and then you like copy abilities from them. And then you can use that to affect the world. So like you get like water gun, I think it is, that you can, water areas and make grass grow. You get leafage. Oh, sorry. Water gun hydrates areas. Leafage is what like plants grass and grows it and stuff.
I'm presuming you get this from, water gun from Squirtle, leafage from Bulbasaur.
Correct.
And like flamethrower from Charmander.
I don't know if I had a fire ability at all.
Okay.
I definitely had like cut. I got rock smash. But the way the game is you're basically altering the environment and building certain shapes or combination of environmental factors, and then that can spawn in Pokemon. So it's a fun mix of like, you want to clear up the space because you'll want to, build structures and build houses, and you'll want to, there's like a Pokemon Center you can repair. You're doing all this stuff to like clean up the area and build it up. But then also along the way, you'll be like, for example, I played some single player mode and I played some local co-op. In the co-op mode, they gave us the task of, it's like, rebuild this Pokemon Center, and you needed some leaves, you needed some sticks, and then we also needed Pokemon to help do the building process, which meant we had to go and find them. So in some cases, it's very specific. So like, we needed a Dragonite to help build this Pokemon Center, and in the save file we're in, they already had like a Dragonite living on an island that they had a house built for and stuff. But we also needed just a Pokemon with the building ability. And so I ended up finding a does Makuhita evolves into Hariyama, is that right?
Yes.
Okay, so we found a Makuhita, and it was like let's see if I wrote it down, the packing up habitat, which was like 2 cardboard boxes on a wooden cart. That's like an example of something, but a lot of them are like, to get a Bulbasaur you just need 4 squares of tall grass. To get a Scyther I needed 4 pieces of grass underneath a larger tree. So it makes you get creative. You're finding out what the habitats are, and then there's also an element of chance, like a lot of Pokemon stuff. You're like, I hope this guy spawns in. So there's that, but then also in the co-op, we played like a lot of the intro stuff, like getting used to the mechanics. The co-op section, we were on someone's like built island already, and it was like, oh, holy cow, like, there are building kits, so you can purchase them from, there's like the computer at the Pokemon Center where you can buy stuff, and you can just be like, oh, I'm gonna make this type of house, and you place it down, and then you can enter it, and that's like a house you can exist in. But you can also just, with blocks, build a house and make it custom for yourself. And this place we went to had like a bunch of houses for Pokemon, and like Umbreon and Espeon shared a house, and Dragonite had his own log cabin and that sort of thing.
Dragonite living the life.
He really was. They were living great. And also just fun interactions of Arcanine was in a house, and I opened the door and I talked to him, and then he came out and he was mad because he says, someone took my signpost. And I guess someone had picked up a signpost that was on his property, and he got mad about it. So then I left and brought him a signpost back, and he was like, thank you, I needed that signpost. And yeah, and then so I was so caught up in this just the fun of completing these tasks and exploring and seeing what all the mechanics were. I also it didn't occur to me, if you use Rock Smash, you can just like mine Minecraft style. When I say Minecraft, I mean you're literally breaking cubes of material, and then you're gaining cubes of material in your inventory. And I think the thing that really started making me process how, because when you're in this instance, for example, it's this pre-built town, and I didn't know how much of it was, did they place each individual block, was this all pre-built, was this all quests or whatever. Just other people in session, didn't even occur to me, just started going around smashing stuff. It's just going around destroying this person's carefully crafted island, which hadn't occurred to me. I had Logan Plant from IGN. He nudged me. I looked over his screen and he says, I found the build limit. And he had built a stack of blocks up like 100 blocks high where you couldn't even see the ground. And then he said, do you think there's fall damage? And just jumped off the side of it, discovering that no, there is not fall damage, but you splat on the ground as a Ditto and then reform as a trainer, which is fun.
That's valuable information. Shout out Logan Plant.
Shout out. And so it was a fun instance of realizing I thought it was one thing, and it is that, but it's also a lot more. It's very customizable. And it's one of those games where you realize it has sandbox elements or things that players can change on their own. And I'm like, I can't wait until 3 days after this comes out. Someone's going to have like a working computer in this game or something, like just the creations people can build when you just give it to, a wide population of people is going to be really big. And I found the Pokemon collecting mechanic especially to just be, it felt unique. It felt like something I hadn't seen in a Pokemon game before, but also something I hadn't really seen in one of these like town building games before, where it's like, I'm not just building, a facility to do something for my town. I'm going out of my way to craft this furniture or assemble these like pieces of the environment specifically to get more Pokemon to my town, and just as like a secondary mechanic. I thought that was just really exciting.
So, talk me more about that kind of collection aspect because I'm also intrigued by that.
Yeah, so I mentioned, so in the like menus of the game, you'll have like habitats that you'll have. And there's different rarities of Pokemon that can appear, but for example, if you have 4 pieces of tall grass in a pod together, that can spawn certain Pokemon. And I think it was uh maybe just Bulbasaur and Charmander are the ones I got. I can't remember if a Squirtle could spawn there or not. But I met a Squirtle before they were spawning in. So there's an element where you're like almost like how you would with a farm in a different game. You're like, oh, I'm just going to set up a bunch of these habitats that are compatible with the Pokemon and hopefully get them to appear. And then as you progress, you'll get, oh, I can't remember what the coins were called off the top of my head.
Probably something like Poke Coins.
Life coins.
Life coins, okay.
And you can use life coins to unlock like recipes for other pieces of furniture and stuff. So that's when I completed the first like level of the story mode I was doing, it gave me like all of a sudden I could craft like 15 new recipes of like chairs and beds and wardrobes, etc. And those would all theoretically, that could like be for a house if you're building a house. It could also be for a habitat, to be like, I want to find, in this instance, a Makuhita, so I'm going to make a cart and I'm going to put these boxes on it, and I need to have the recipes for those. So I thought that was interesting. There's also like comfort is an element. So Bulbasaur had his own habitat, and I went and it was like, oh, he would love a place to sleep at night or something. So I could go and craft a straw bed out of a bunch of sticks and leaves I found and place that near him. As long as it's within like a certain radius, he can make use of it and he'll like it. I didn't quite get to the part where I was building houses, so I'm curious how that works. If it's specific items that can be placed inside or outside or whatever. But yeah, I thought that was it's basically is the game's farming equivalent. But then also there's like, if you water trees that are all shriveled up, you can get Lepa berries, and that refills your PP. But you can also give that to other Pokemon to make them like you. There's like gift giving to build your relationships in the game. So yeah.
So is it safe to say this was your favorite thing that you played at that Nintendo event?
Definitely. And this is out in like a month, like March 5th, I think.
March 5th, less than a month.
Yeah, so I'm very excited to play this game more, because I hadn't realized not just how much there was to it, but it's the perfect game that I'm just going to be like in bed at the end of the day with some TV show up, and I'm just going to be like, let's see if I can get another Scyther or something. Like it also does a good job, I feel like, of Pokemon as like a world has so many like facets of like one's relationship to Pokemon. And I like games where you're Pokemon interacting with other Pokemon. And sometimes there's an element of, as a trainer, battling Pokemon. That's just is one specific view of the world that you have. And I like this idea of being like, it's a world where there's no humans and you're building it up from scratch. It's like a Pokemon built world. And it just is a type of nostalgia and coziness that I haven't really, I haven't been super hot on the Pokemon franchise recently. I think my first time here, and this was like one of my first times talking to you, was on All Things Nintendo, talking about Scarlet and Violet, which I was not like a huge fan of. And I think I've kind of been colder on the series since then. And so this is the first time in a while I've been like specifically excited for Pokemon, which is cool.
Yeah, that's great that they're kind of like, I mean, Pokemon is always going to be huge, but like it does feel like it's kind of on like a little bit of a downward slope as of late.
Yeah.
I was recently on another podcast. I'm actually wearing the shirt for the podcast, Gamerheads podcast by patron of this very show, Roger Reichart, and was talking about how I think this year is kind of a make or break year for Pokemon. And, you know, we're on the 30th anniversary, so they're probably going to go big. We're going to learn about this on Pokemon Day at the end of this month. But I feel like they're going to be pulling out all the stops because, one, it's a big anniversary, but two, like, you know, Gen 10, whatever that ends up being, is going to be, I think, like it's either going to be like the third kind of underwhelming mainline entry in a row, or it's going to be the one that rights the ship.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's possible to overstate how important Gen 10, if that is what they end up announcing on February 27th, how important that is going to be as like a pivotal entry in the mainline Pokemon franchise. And the fact that I feel like we're getting some new blood in the development, at least in the leadership, because Junichi Masuda no longer at Game Freak. He's full-time at the Pokemon Company now. Shigeru Omori seems like he is extremely occupied by Beast of Reincarnation, which is another major project at Game Freak right now. I think that they're going to have some less experienced developers kind of doing the day-to-day stuff, while Omori and Masuda kind of oversee it from a distance, kind of like how we see like Shigeru Miyamoto is not really involved, as far as we know, in the day-to-day development stuff nowadays. Now he just kind of oversees it, and if there's something that needs to be like consulted on, or something that he needs to like come in and step in and make a change, he'll do that. But it seems like he's more interested in kind of the big pictures these days. And I think that that's kind of where we're getting at with people like Masuda and maybe Omori at this point. So that's also exciting to me, because they'll have the guidance of the more experienced people, but the day-to-day stuff seems like it might be some younger, less experienced developers taking the reins, unless Omori's just doing both, which seems like that might be a difficult task to take on the work on both of them. But we won't know for sure for probably several months who is directing whatever Pokemon Gen 10 ends up being.
Yeah, yeah. I think Pokopia is also a good instance of like just the concept of young blood being a one of those almost like no-brainer. Like, of course Pokemon would make a good like this type of game. Like, it is a very I don't know. It feels like a very obvious, easy collaboration, and from what I played, it's very good. And I'm hoping we get more stuff like that, where it's like, we know what we've done before, we know what Pokemon is. How can we take it and in these like pretty straightforward directions expand it in a way that is going to be more in tune with, you know, the games people play nowadays? Yeah, I'm excited.
Yeah, I am looking forward to Pokemon Pokopia. I really think like this is among my most anticipated for the first half of 2026. Like there's a short list of games that I'm just like really excited to hit the ground running. And Pokopia has been a point of curiosity for me up until this point. And then they did that recent kind of more expanded trailer of like, okay, here's what you're going to be doing. I think that was like maybe a month ago at this point. And then your hands-on impressions really kind of pushed me over the edge of like, yeah, this is a game that I am super stoked for. And we don't have long to wait. It comes out March 5th on Switch 2 only, right?
I think so.
Yeah, it
I
doesn't
also want to
appear in Nintendo
say
Switch.
I didn't really sell that much about it, but I was playing local co-op with people, and that was awesome.
Yeah.
I'm curious how online would feel. I assume it would be similar. I feel like they've been pretty consistent about that in recent years, but and I don't know if you gotta like enable permissions or what. I wasn't there when they were connecting the consoles together, but just the fact that like you and a friend can essentially exist on the island together, and I had full ability to, you know, destroy everything on there, which, you know, if it's someone crazy, then obviously that would suck. But there was no restrictions. Like, if they were like, hey, help me build this giant thing, it's like I absolutely could. Or they want to show me some cool thing on their island, then we can absolutely do that and explore together. And in the instance where I found the Makuhita, I spawned it in, but then I couldn't. It was like, oh, find player one and send them to me, and I can talk about moving here. So that was like a thing of, yeah, I couldn't interact with the Pokemon themselves, but I was basically able to do everything else. And I think that's also a really nice thing of Pokemon is kind of synonymous with like multiplayer elements to an extent, and this is definitely a good application of that too.
Well, I'm very much looking forward to it. March 5th, less than a month away as you were listening to this episode of the podcast. Charles, I didn't tell you we were going to talk about this, but you know, we have a segment here on All Things Nintendo that we haven't done in quite a while. It's called the eShop Gem of the Week.
Oh.
And you were playing a game that I think qualifies quite nicely for this, and I wanted to get your take on it. I know you haven't played it all the way to the end. But there's a game that came out in January called Big Hops. And I was wondering if you could
Okay.
talk to me a little bit about why you have been enjoying that game so much, because that is on Switch and Switch 2, and I think it would be of great interest to the podcasting community.
Yeah, so I played it on PS5 mostly. Mostly only. I haven't played it on Switch. From what I understand, it's good. I haven't seen any raising any big alarm bells on the Switch Nintendo versions. Yeah, it's a great little 3D platformer. It is in the vein of Mario Odyssey, which is not something I use lightly, and also maybe I just really like Mario Odyssey. I'm not like a huge platformer guy. Like, I don't play a lot of them. But when I think about it hard enough, I think Mario Odyssey might be my favorite game on the Switch, because
Wow.
I've never been disappointed to go back and play through that game again. I don't 100% games hardly ever, and I've 100%ed Mario Odyssey.
Oh, man. That's a
so
big
it's
accomplishment, too. 'Cause some of those later darker side of the moons and everything are really tough.
definitely, yeah. So that's like the hallmark, like that's the best 3D platformer in my eyes. So anything compared to that is a win. And Big Hops, I do compare it to it, and I think that's a fair comparison. You play as a frog named Hop, and the main mechanic is that you got a tongue, so you can grapple to certain things and swing around. But the main reason I like the game so much is that the physics just feel really good. There's a really good sense of preserving momentum. You also have a lot of options when you're moving around. That's something that's really important to me of a 3D platformer. Of you can jump, you can dive, you can roll, you can swing on something. And then this game also has a veggies system where you have a backpack that you can put these different like platforming veggies into. I mean, you throw them in the environment, they'll do something. So like one creates a zip line between 2 points. One will bounce off a wall and you can use your tongue to ricochet off of it. Another one creates like a balloon that like might lift things up. And it's a really cool like systems based approach that reminds me of something like the runes in Breath of the Wild or Tears of the Kingdom, where the game is kind of built around you're at point A and it knows you can get to point B, and you can either use the way that they intend, or you can bust a bunch of veggies out of your backpack and like make your own way. And I love a game that is like, oh yeah, I guess if you had this thing, you could totally break this and skip this thing, and you think you're being really cool and subverting its expectations, but the developers know that it's more fun to feel like you're breaking the game like that.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a game that's really revolves around that. Also is really good cell shaded art, and I think the writing is funny, and it's also all voice acted with some like there's some like weirdly big names in there for being an indie game. I think Steve Bloom is one of them.
Oh, nice.
You might know as Wolverine in basically anything Wolverine is in. So yeah, that's a game I endorse very highly. I never finished it. I would love to go back and finish it and write a review at some point. I just never got around to it. But
Sure.
yeah, great little pick.
Well, it is $20 on the eShop, and it is compatible both Switch and Switch 2. And it came out January 12th, so just about a month old as you are listening to this. So go check that out if that sounds up your alley. I know I purchased a copy on Switch 2, and I am very eager to fire it up because you were so high on it that I really want to give it a fair shake. And Mario Odyssey is my favorite 3D platformer of all time. So
Taste.
that comparison is a good one to get me interested. So thanks so much for sharing that. And thank you so much for coming on this episode of All Things Nintendo.
Of course. Thanks for having me.
And thank you so much, everyone, for listening. As you know, my Patreon and the associated Discord server are the best ways to get in touch with me, but you can also reach out at brian@allthingsnintendo.com or hit me up on social media at Brian P. Shea. Charles, tell everyone where they can find you on social media and anywhere else.
Yeah, I'm on social media at ChuckDuck365. Sometimes I perform at the Black Box Improv Theater in Dayton, Ohio. You can check it out. And also, I didn't plug this last time I was on here. You can subscribe to Game Informer, GameInformer.com/subscribe, which is a good way to help my other work, which I'm sure you know if you listen to All Things Nintendo. But yeah.
That is our show for this week. Thank you again so much for listening. Take care. We'll see you next time. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of All Things Nintendo. Before we get out of here, I just want to give a special thank you to the $10 patrons of this podcast. Alex Stadnick, Andy Junkins, Ben Richland, Chad Brecky, Chaps My Ass, Derek Sigmund, Dusty Beeman, Ian T. Clark, Jawar Hello, Johnny Five, Jose Villalobos, Joshua DeProy, Casey Radio Man, Cody Gibson, Creeper 207, Ozman83, Paul at Drunk on Mako, Pratable, Rob McCann, Bobby Mac 265, Robert Sosa, Roberto Nieves, Roger Reichert, Russell Sayer, Smithy Poo, Zane Sink, and Zek 3 Sword Sama. Thank you all so much for your continued support. I could not do this week after week without you.